You are someone who knows exactly when it happened. The year, the decision, the moment you stepped left instead of right and watched a version of your life become unavailable. You don't talk about it, but you know. You've always known. People assume that kind of feeling is simply regret, that the solution is acceptance, time, gratitude for what you have. Stop looking backward. But psychology has quietly discovered something more specific. What you're carrying is not regret. It's closer to grief. It has a name, a mechanism, and it works on you whether you're aware of it or not. The strange part? The people who understand this, who can finally name what has been running underneath their lives, don't just feel relief. They gain something they didn't know they'd lost. There is a term in psychology called counterfactual thinking. It refers to the mind's tendency to mentally simulate alternatives to what actually happened. What if I had stayed? What if I had gone? What if the conversation had ended differently? This is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is the mind doing something deeply functional. Comparing reality to alternative realities helps humans learn, plan, and protect themselves. But for some people, counterfactual thinking becomes something heavier. Not a quick scan of possibilities, a parallel world, a shadow life that runs beside the real one, almost visible. Psychologists have a word for the grief that comes from losing a life you never actually had. They call it ambiguous loss. It is one of the most disorienting forms of grief a person can carry, because there is no event to point to, no funeral, nothing that officially happened. Why do some people develop an almost life while others simply move forward? What psychologists have quietly discovered is that it comes down to one variable: attachment. Not attachment to a person, necessarily. Attachment to an identity, a version of yourself that was becoming real, and then wasn't. When that version gets interrupted, by circumstance or a decision made too fast, the mind doesn't file it away. It holds it open, like a tab that was never closed. The unfinished self remains active in the background, using cognitive resources, surfacing at unexpected moments. This is not sentimentality. It is a documented pattern. Researchers studying self-continuity found that people with strong future self-identity, people who had a clear, vivid picture of who they were becoming, experienced significantly higher psychological disruption when that trajectory was altered. The almost life is not about the past. It is about an interrupted future. You know what this feels like from the inside. It is not constant pain. It is more like a frequency. Most of the time, you don't hear it. But certain things tune you into it suddenly. Someone mentions a city you once almost moved to. A song from a year when everything felt uncertain. A job title that sounds like the one you almost had. And for a moment, it becomes nearly tactile. You can almost feel its texture. This is what researchers call the availability heuristic at work on identity. When something makes a road not taken feel vivid and close, it feels briefly more real than the life you are in. And the gap between the two becomes painful in a way that is hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. What makes this experience so isolating is that there is no language for it in ordinary life. We have words for grief, loss, and regret. We do not have clean words for mourning a life that technically never existed. There is one cost to the almost life that is rarely discussed. When the parallel version of yourself is allowed to run without examination, it can become a measuring stick. And measuring sticks have a way of making the life you are actually living feel inadequate. This is the quiet danger. Not that you mourn what might have been, but that almost life becomes the standard, by which you judge everything. The real job is measured against the almost career, the real relationship against the almost love, the real city against the one where you imagine things would have been cleaner, easier, more you. When this happens, the present becomes permanently provisional, always compared, never quite enough. Here is what the research actually offers, not as comfort, but as something more useful. The almost life is not evidence you failed. It is evidence that you had a self vivid enough to imagine. Most people do not grieve unlived lives deeply. They do not feel the weight of the path not taken. The ones who do are people who had something worth imagining. What psychologists recommend is not to silence the parallel life. It is to integrate it, to acknowledge what was real about it, the desire, the direction, the version of yourself it represented, without allowing it to pass judgment on the present. Almost life is not your future anymore, but it is still information about what you value, about who you were becoming, about what the present version of your life still has room for. You are not someone haunted by a mistake. You are someone who has enough imagination to see once what your life might become. That capacity does not disappear. It just needs somewhere to go. The almost life is not the life you lost. It is the life still pointing at something. You just have to look where it's pointing.